Imagine waking up each morning believing your body is carrying on as it always has, faithfully doing its quiet work while you pour your coffee and step into the day. But deep inside, a silent intruder may already be reshaping your future. This intruder rarely knocks loudly at first. It tiptoes in, leaving only faint whispers, an extra inch around the waist, a little more tiredness than before. By the time most people realize what's happening, the damage is already underway. I'm Dr. Brian, and welcome to Channel Vital Science for Seniors. Today, we're shining a light on one of the most overlooked but fastest growing health threats for adults over 50, fatty liver disease. It affects nearly 1 in 3 people, yet most never suspect they have it until serious problems begin. Stay with me, because the truth about this condition might surprise you, and it might just save your life. Fatty liver disease, also called hepatic steatosis, happens when too much fat builds up inside the liver. Your liver naturally carries a small amount of fat, but when that fat rises above 5 to 10% of the organ's weight, it begins to interfere with how this vital engine of your body works. There are two main types: non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The most common is linked to issues like obesity, diabetes, and metabolic changes. Alcoholic fatty liver disease develops from heavy drinking and is often the earliest sign of alcohol-related liver damage. Both forms carry serious risks. Causes of fatty liver disease, 717 words. When I think about the hidden beginnings of fatty liver disease, I'm reminded of a patient named Margaret. She was 62, a grandmother with a quick laugh, who came to see me about what she thought was just getting older. She complained of being tired, her waistband feeling tighter, and occasional discomfort on her right side. Like many people, she brushed these off as ordinary aging, but her blood tests and scan told a different story. Her liver was quietly storing fat, a slow process that had been unfolding for years. The question Margaret asked me, the same question I hear so often, was simple: why me? To answer that, we need to look at the different forces that nudge fat into the liver. Imagine the liver as a kitchen sponge. It soaks up what flows into it. Sometimes it's water, sometimes it's oil. The problem comes when that sponge begins to soak up more oil than it can wring out. One of the most common culprits is obesity, or simply carrying extra weight around the middle. This isn't about vanity, it's about biology. Excess belly fat behaves like a chemical factory, releasing signals that make the body less responsive to insulin, the hormone that helps move sugar from the blood into cells. When the body resists insulin, sugar and fat linger in the blood, and the liver, like that sponge, absorbs them. Over time, this constant soaking leads to swelling and scarring. In fact, research has shown that people with a body mass index above 30 are significantly more likely to develop fatty liver disease, even if they feel otherwise healthy. Closely tied to this is type 2 diabetes. More than half of those with diabetes will develop fatty liver disease at some point. That's because insulin resistance, the hallmark of diabetes, creates a perfect storm for fat buildup in the liver. The liver tries to manage the extra sugar, but in doing so, it converts much of it into fat, which settles into its own tissue like unwanted clutter, filling a once tidy room. High cholesterol and triglycerides add another layer. Think of fat in the bloodstream as traffic on a highway. When there are too many cars, a jam is inevitable. In the case of your liver, this traffic jam results in fat spilling over into liver cells, filling them up until they struggle to do their job. Several studies confirm that people with elevated triglycerides face a much higher risk of fatty liver, even if their weight is not especially high. Alcohol, of course, has its own story. Many people underestimate how hard the liver works to process even a moderate amount of alcohol. Each drink sets off a chain reaction, breaking alcohol into byproducts that are toxic to liver cells. Over years, the damaged compounds, the sponge becomes scarred, and fat begins to collect. That's why alcoholic fatty liver disease is often the first step on a dangerous path that can lead to cirrhosis if nothing changes. Diet plays a powerful role as well. Modern processed foods are filled with hidden sugars, trans fats, and excessive fructose, ingredients that drive the liver to produce more fat than it can handle. Imagine feeding a furnace not with clean wood, but with damp, smoky logs. The fire still burns, but the room fills with soot. That's what sugary drinks, processed snacks, and greasy fast foods do to your liver. They create metabolic smoke that suffocates the system over time. And then there's the lifestyle so many of us fall into: sedentary, sitting for hours at work or at home. The body is designed to move, to let muscles act as sponges, soaking up sugar and fat from the blood. When we don't move enough, the liver ends up taking the excess load. That quiet sitting becomes fuel for silent damage. So when Margaret asked, "Why me?" the truth was, it wasn't one single choice or one single habit. It was years of small accumulations. Less movement, more sugar, a little more weight, and in her case, diabetes. Each by itself seemed manageable, but together they became a perfect storm for fatty liver disease. And here's the part that matters most. None of these causes are inevitable. They are signals, reminders that with the right changes, the tide can be turned. Fatty liver disease is not destiny. It is a call to action. If the causes of fatty liver disease are like a slow storm gathering on the horizon, then the symptoms are the first drops of rain, often so light that people don't even notice until the ground beneath them is already soaked. That's what makes this condition especially deceptive. In its earliest stages, the liver quietly struggles on, masking its distress while continuing to filter toxins, regulate energy, and support digestion. By the time symptoms show, the disease has usually been at work for years. I'll never forget James, a 70-year-old retired teacher who came into my office convinced he simply needed stronger vitamins. He was exhausted all the time, and his wife noticed he no longer had the energy to take their evening walks. When I asked him to describe his fatigue, he said it wasn't the kind that sleep could fix. It was as if a heavy blanket was draped over his shoulders every day. This kind of deep, unshakable fatigue is one of the most common signals of fatty liver disease. The body is starved of energy because the liver, normally a powerhouse, is weighed down and inflamed. Another symptom is a dull ache or discomfort in the upper right abdomen, the place where the liver rests just beneath the rib cage. Many dismiss this pain as indigestion, gas, or even gallbladder trouble, but in reality, it can be the liver's way of whispering, "I'm swollen, I'm struggling." In James's case, pressing gently on his side revealed tenderness he hadn't even realized was unusual. Unexplained weight loss can also be a warning sign, and while some might welcome the idea of shedding pounds without trying, it often signals that the liver's metabolic balance has broken down. A damaged liver can't process or store nutrients properly, leaving the body malnourished even if meals remain the same. I've seen patients grow thinner and weaker while believing they were becoming healthier, when in fact their livers were failing them. Then there's jaundice, that unmistakable yellowing of the skin and eyes. This happens when the liver can no longer handle bilirubin, a natural byproduct of red blood cells. It builds up in the bloodstream and stains the body like tea poured over a white cloth. By the time jaundice appears, fatty liver disease has usually advanced to a dangerous level, one that requires urgent medical care. Another hidden but devastating symptom is swelling, particularly in the legs, ankles, and abdomen. This swelling, called edema, arises because a damaged liver cannot produce enough of the proteins that normally regulate fluid balance. I once had a patient whose shoes no longer fit because her feet had puffed up so much, yet she thought it was simply poor circulation. Only later did she learn it was her liver signaling distress. And finally, in more severe cases, the brain itself begins to suffer. When the liver cannot properly filter toxins, those toxins travel to the brain, clouding thought and memory. Patients describe it as walking into a fog, forgetting words mid-sentence, struggling to concentrate, or feeling as though they're in a dreamlike state. This condition, called hepatic encephalopathy, is one of the clearest signs that liver function has dropped to a critical point. What makes all of this so heartbreaking is how easily these symptoms are mistaken for normal aging. Fatigue is blamed on getting older. Abdominal pain is brushed off as indigestion. Swelling is chalked up to bad veins. Even confusion or forgetfulness is sometimes dismissed as senior moments. The liver, in its quiet suffering, is overlooked again and again until damage is well advanced. That's why awareness is so vital. When James finally underwent imaging tests, we discovered his liver was inflamed and fatty, but not beyond saving. With changes in his lifestyle and close medical guidance, he was able to reverse much of the damage. Today, he and his wife are back to their evening walks, slow but steady, step by step. So if you ever notice exhaustion that doesn't lift, unexplained weight changes, persistent abdominal discomfort, or swelling that won't go away, don't dismiss it. These may be the small raindrops before the storm, gentle reminders from your liver that it needs care before the clouds fully break open. The most hopeful part of this conversation is that fatty liver disease is not an irreversible sentence. Unlike some conditions that progress without mercy, this one often responds beautifully to changes you can make at any age. I've seen livers regain their strength, patients reclaim their energy, and lives brighten again when the right steps are taken. Let me share how. One of the most powerful tools is weight loss, but not the kind that comes from crash diets or punishing routines. The liver thrives on steady, gentle progress. A 5 to 10% reduction in body weight can significantly reduce fat stored in the liver and ease inflammation. I remember Margaret, the patient I mentioned earlier. We set a goal of losing just a pound a week, and over 6 months she shed 12 pounds. That small, consistent effort transformed her lab results and gave her back the energy to play with her grandchildren. Diet is the next cornerstone. Think of your liver as a finely tuned engine. It runs best on clean fuel. The Mediterranean way of eating has been shown in numerous studies to reduce fat in the liver by as much as 20%. This means filling your plate with colorful vegetables, fruits, whole grains, lean proteins like fish or chicken, and healthy fats from olive oil or nuts. Just as importantly, it means steering away from processed foods, sugary drinks, and those innocent-looking, low-fat snacks that often hide high levels of sugar. One study published in Hepatology showed that reducing sugary beverages alone significantly lowered liver fat in just a few weeks. Exercise, too, is medicine. You don't need a gym membership or hours on a treadmill. What matters most is consistency. The liver benefits enormously when muscles act as partners, soaking up sugar and fat from the bloodstream. A brisk walk for 30 minutes 5 times a week, swimming, cycling, or even dancing in the living room can help the liver breathe easier. When James committed to daily walks, his fatigue began to lift as his body learned to use energy more efficiently. Managing blood sugar and cholesterol is another vital step. For those living with diabetes or prediabetes, keeping glucose levels steady not only protects the heart and eyes, but also shields the liver from excess fat production. Similarly, controlling cholesterol helps reduce the traffic jam of fats that otherwise overflow into liver cells. This often means working with your doctor on medications if needed, but also making everyday choices that support balance. More fiber, fewer fried foods, smaller portions of sweets. And then there is alcohol. For those with alcoholic fatty liver disease, the single most healing choice is to stop drinking entirely. For those with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, even moderate alcohol can worsen the condition. I know this can be one of the hardest changes to make, especially when alcohol has been a companion in social life. But I've witnessed patients who gave it up regain not just healthier livers, but clearer minds, steadier moods, and deeper sleep. Speaking of sleep, research now shows that inadequate rest increases the risk of fatty liver disease, while good sleep supports healing. 7 to 9 hours a night gives the liver time to repair itself, to reset the body's chemistry, and to prepare for another day of work. It's not indulgence, it's medicine. Finally, never hesitate to seek the guidance of a specialist. A hepatologist can assess the severity of your condition and guide you toward personalized treatments. Sometimes, simple lifestyle changes are enough. Other times, medications or close monitoring are necessary. The important thing is not to wait until symptoms become unbearable. The earlier you act, the greater the chance of reversing the damage. I've walked this path with countless patients, and what stays with me is their resilience. Even after years of neglect, the liver is one of the most forgiving organs in the body. When treated kindly, it can heal in ways that seem almost miraculous. So if you're listening today and wondering whether change is worth the effort, let me assure you, it is. So here we are, at the end of this journey into a condition that hides in plain sight. Fatty liver disease may be common, but it does not have to define your future. With steady steps, eating cleaner, moving more, resting well, and letting go of habits that harm, you can give your liver the chance to heal no matter your age. I've seen it happen time and time again. I'm Dr. Brian, and I want you to remember, your body has not given up on you. Treat it with care, and it will return the favor. Stay hopeful, stay strong,